Thank you once again, folks, for joining us today. Today's program, Tips for Aging in Place, features architect Harry Webb, who will guide us through the process of creating a safer and more accessible living spaces. Um, I would like to introduce Harry Webb to our session today. Harry Webb is a licensed architect based in the Washington, D.C. metro area. Over the course of his career, he's led the design on a range of projects, including single family home renovations, senior living communities, and several multifamily apartment buildings. Harry is passionate about combining both technical precision with thoughtful design to create places that feel both elevated and enduring. His favorite projects are ones that improve the lives of the people who live there, making them feel more at home in their own space. So with that, let's welcome Harry Webb to our session today. And Harry, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to go ahead and pass the floor over to you now.
Thanks. Thanks, Johnny. Appreciate it. So let me share my screen and we'll get started. Let's see. There we go. All right. So welcome, everybody. Yeah, the topic for today is designing for life, tips for aging in place. So hopefully over the next half an hour, 45 minutes before we get to questions, we'll go through how to approach making your home better fit your needs today, but also into however long you want to live in your home. All right, so get going here. So a little bit about who I am. As Johnny said, I'm a licensed architect. I'm licensed in Maryland, Virginia, and DC. I've worked with homeowners of all ages, as well as some developers for kind of larger senior living communities, assisted living communities throughout the DMV. My interest in kind of aging in place and the topic of designing for an aging population, and just it has a lot of side benefits to humanity in general, but it stems from kind of some personal experience where my grandmother was able to live in her home until she was just about 90. That was thanks in part to some fantastic kind of home care. But it was really enabled by the fact that she had a ground floor bedroom and bathroom and was able to kind of avoid the places that got harder for her to access as she got older. So for today, just as a preface, I am an architect. As Johnny mentioned, there's a session right after this one that dives more into the smart technology scope of aging in place. So I will be taking a lens at how architecture and how the built environment can enable aging in place, and what are the common challenges that we end up seeing in many of the homes throughout the U.S. So I'll be steering clear of kind of policy, economic, and social aspects to aging in place. Let's dive in. For today, I also thought it would be good to define how we're going to approach aging in place, because there's a broad interpretation of what aging in place means to different people in different situations. For today, we are going to assume that aging in place narrowly means growing older in your current home where you currently live. And there's an important requirement to that, which is maintaining your current quality of life. There are other ways of aging in place within your community. It may mean moving to another home in your neighborhood that better fits your needs. But for today, we're going to be focusing on how do you stay in your current home and make that home work for you. All right, before we get into some of the challenges and solutions, I'd just like to quickly run through the potential benefits of aging in place. First up is community connections. It now feels a little bit like common sense, but staying in the community that you have lived in for a long time can have an incredible impact on your emotional well-being and cognitive function. Those familiar surroundings can be very comforting as we get older. And also, if there's no reason to leave that community and you benefit from those resources around you, then staying in your home compounds on itself. We as humans just build communities around us wherever we go, and leaving that community can be very disruptive. And staying in our home as we get older also boosts independence and autonomy. as we maintain those rhythms and routines that we've known for years. There can also be financial benefits related to staying in your home for longer. Those are very dependent on each scenario, but overall, keeping that equity in your home can serve as a safety net in later life. All right, so where to start when thinking about aging in place? The kind of first thing is really evaluating your home and how you live in it, um, and creating a very solid plan. So we'll run through some of the most common risk areas that are pervasive in homes throughout the United States, and how to think about what solution is right for you. The driving concept behind aging in place as I approach it in my professional life is risk reduction, thinking about what are those elements that you can address feasibly. There may be things that are just financially or physically impossible to correct in your home. So really looking holistically at your home and identifying those things that you can reasonably address that will have a great impact today, but also kind of reduce risk going forward. So I kind of just went through and picked four of what I see as the most common risks, most common challenges to aging in place. Number one is definitely steps, stairs, any kind of change in grade. It's the most common source of falls in the senior population, but also just for all humans. Steps, falling down the stairs, missing a step, tripping on that 1 inch little change in elevation can really have a big impact. Falls are dangerous. So we'll kind of run through some of those conditions to look for in your own home, and a little bit about how to go about maybe correcting them or at least making them more safe. Um, Even thresholds of 1/4 inch, where it's just a transition between a wood floor and a tile floor, can be the source of a fall, and those are things we want to look at as we're evaluating the home for aging in place. Number two is going to be lighting, which also feels a little bit self-evident when we step back and look at our own homes, but it's something we don't think about day to day, especially if we've been living in our homes for 20, 30 years, which I saw in the chat many of you have been. So taking a step back and identifying if there are dim or inaccessible lighting sources in your home, and either increasing the amount of lighting in your home or adding a remote switch so you don't have to walk across a dark room to turn on a light. Um, it's tied to steps and the danger there, but if we can't see what's on the ground in front of us, even if we've been walking through the same space for 20 years, as we get older, it's a big risk. Number three I have on here is doorways. They pose their own challenges as we age in place, and that is mainly due to kind of a dimensional constraint on mobility. But it also can be tied into door hardware. The round knobs that are everywhere around us can be a little bit hard to grasp as we get older, and those are easy fixes, but things to look at in your home. And then last on here is deferred maintenance. I would tell this to any client of any age, but making sure you're taking care of your home and all the systems that keep it cool and keep it hot in the winter, keep the lights on, keep the water hot. All those things get even more important as we start to rely on them more. And as we've all kind of been experiencing, extreme heat, extreme cold can be a real health risk. So making sure that your home is well kept, all the systems are maintained, and having a plan and somebody to help you kind of maintain those systems in the future is crucial. All right, diving a little bit more into steps and what I mean by kind of those being a source of risk. Steps are everywhere. If we look at the street curb to your front stoop, to the stairs inside your home, if you have any, even stairs between kind of the living room and a hallway where you can have that one step down, down to that quarter-inch transition between a wood floor and a tile floor or a carpet and wood. Um, any scenario like this can be a source of risk. It can, even if we walked up those stairs for 20 years, one day foot slips and a fall happens. So taking a look at in your home where those steps are, can you add a handrail? Are they well lit? Is the surface not extremely slippery? And if there is a feasible solution to modifying those stairs, to either create zero threshold, which can get more involved and more expensive, but identifying those hazards now before they become something problematic is a good place to start when thinking about aging in place. This is also something that it has a side benefit. If you add that handrail, if you create a zero threshold condition, it has a benefit not just to seniors, but to toddlers, to a teenager who's had a sports injury, to anybody who has any kind of mobility issue. Addressing some of these and just adding that next level of kind of safety, whether it's that handrail or something to prevent falling, is really just a good idea at any age. So there's code requirements in new construction to have the handrail and to have guardrails, but in a lot of our older homes, it may not necessarily be the case that those are installed. So highly recommend for the cost of a handrail, it can really be extremely helpful. And that's even talking from personal experience. I've slipped on a stair once or twice in my life, and having that handrail there has prevented major injuries. We'll next talk about lighting in a little bit more detail. Happily, in the age we live in, and I think they'll likely go into it in the next session in more detail, but lighting is one of the easiest things to address in our homes. If there's low lighting or switches are kind of inaccessible behind a door when you enter the room, things of that nature. So I would just go through your daily routine and see if there's something you can identify where an additional switch, an additional light would be helpful. Either there's even battery powered light bulbs. You can do remote switches. There's a million different solutions to that, but it also, like stairs, having a well lit home, regardless of if it's the light is always on, you can still have a nice lamp. You don't have to have the lights on at all times. But when it becomes a a hazard where you can't see where you're walking, having the ability to turn that light on is one way to reduce risk. And then doors. Doors is not as easy thing to fix. Swapping out door hardware from a round knob to a lever is fairly straightforward. A good handyman can make that switch for you. The challenges become in a lot of homes in the United States when the door is 2 feet wide and you cannot fit a walker or a wheelchair through that door. That's where I would sadly have to point you to a design professional such as myself to evaluate how you might be able to widen that door, or if there's an alternate route where you can still use that section of your home. So looking at your current home and thinking about how in the future you may be able to access different parts of it today when you may not need to worry about it, um, having that plan of what are you going to do in the future and making that change now versus it's when it's already too late, you need that mobility assistance and now you can't get into the kitchen, then you have to wait for somebody to come and widen that door if it's feasible. So I would evaluate those items now, um, and contact someone who may be able to give you more information on making that change. And deferred maintenance. And this is, at least in the DC, Washington region, At least in the neighborhood I live in, we lose power every once in a while, and it's a very good reminder on just if it's 95, 100 degrees, it gets uncomfortable for me right now. And I know as I get older, it's going to become more and more of a problem. If I can't maintain, if we're out of power for a week, I'm not staying in my home when it's 95 degrees as I get older. So making sure that all those systems in your homes aren't neglected. Um, as I stated before, that's one of the things that often it doesn't get lumped into thinking about aging in place, but can be as crucial as making sure those thresholds are taken care of, making sure it's well lit. If the AC goes out, if the water stops running, you can't live in that home. So making sure that all of those things are maintained and taken care of. So kind of stepping back, every home is different. All these scenarios have kind of run through all of the common items. You may have none of these problems in your home. You may have all of these problems in your home. You may have things we haven't touched on today because there are a million ways to design and lay out a home. We've also kind of been talking about at least geared more towards single family. If you're renting an apartment, if you own a condo, there's a whole different set of constraints. Um, but for everyone, I think taking a step back to evaluate your home is where to start. So, how do you get from your house to the world and vice versa? How do you get from the street, from the car into your house? Is kind of the first place to start because no matter what updates, what things you fix in your house, if you cannot get in and out, that is a constraint that is it's very hard to overcome and will pose kind of a existential problem to staying in your home long term. So identifying where those challenges are, whether it's the curb step or if you're on the fifth floor walk up, um, some of those things are infeasible to change. If you're in a big apartment building and you're renting, you actually do have a lot of rights under many different pieces of legislation, which I won't get into today, but you can request um, reasonable modifications to your apartment to make it better to live in as you grow older. Um, but there are some things like they're likely not going to add an elevator if you're on the fifth floor walk up. Um, so after you've kind of run through how do you get into your home, it's really running through your daily routines, maybe over the course of a week, have a notepad and be noting all of the things you think may pose a problem in the future and collecting that information in one place. Um, and then if those issues are things that you need to consult a professional about, I would do it now and not wait until they become a problem. Because as many of us know, construction, design take time. Um, and these are things where once they become a problem, they are an immediate problem. So knowing what the plan is and potentially tackling some of these pain points um, is a good place to start. And then when in doubt, if you think there's something that may be a problem, if you think there's an opportunity to make something better, but you're not exactly sure how to go about it, find a trusted professional near you and ask them for their advice. It may be a quick conversation that would be enlightening and may change how you're thinking about your own house. Sometimes when we live in a place for a very long amount of time, we become a little bit blind and a little bit used to the things that maybe were annoying the first week when you moved in, but now it's been 30 years and you've gotten so used to it that you now don't even see it. But having those outside eyes and a different perspective come in may kind of enlighten what some of those items are. So next steps. I'm going to leave a decent chunk of time at the end here for questions because every scenario is so different. I figured we'd have a lot to talk about. Um, but I wanted to outline some next steps. I think, yeah, make a detailed list, really take a step back and evaluate your home for the little things and for the big things. Ideally, those little things are addressable, adding grab bars, kind of changing out a flooring threshold, changing out door handles, improving lighting. I think where it starts to get into a conversation of, can I make this work? Are kind of steep steps. Fifth floor walkout is a great example of this may be a challenge in later life. Um, and I haven't talked about it here because it's very expensive, but adding in an elevator, we do see that in our region. But I always recommend that you evaluate single floor living prior to adding in an expensive elevator, because once you add one in, it's a little bit like a pool. You have to maintain it, has to be licensed, and you need someone to do all that work for you. Whereas the single floor bedroom on the ground floor suite, once you build it, it is there. And with work from home being what it is today, that actually has a real market value. Step two, very important in aging in place always, is budget. If you're willing to spend whatever it takes to stay in your home, then you can really fix any problem in front of you. If you're on the fence of, can this work for me? Or does it make sense for me to move to another home in my community? Really making that detailed list and then a budget and evaluating what your options are with a design professional will make that decision hopefully very clear. Yeah, and step three, ideally these are things that are easy fixes like the door handle and some other kind of lighting options. If they're more complex, don't hesitate to reach out to a design professional. Um, it's why we spend so much time kind of studying and getting all of our licenses, is so we can really be there to help you think through some of these more complicated items. And it may seem like an insurmountable problem, as you're looking at it in your own home, but getting that outside perspective can really, it could be something that's an easier solution than you're thinking. All right, that was the slides I have. So we really just briefly touched on a couple of major things that I look for as I walk through homes nowadays. Kind of the heavy hitter, the problems that are identifiable and solvable. Everyone has their own things that they're thinking about as they kind of think about the next 20, 30 years in your home. So I think we'll open it up for questions.
Okay. Yeah, so we have a few questions coming into the chat room. And folks, we encourage you to answer your questions in the chat room, or you can raise your hand and I'll send you a direct link to unmute your microphone. So we'll go to Harold first. Harold, I'm going to send you a link to unmute, and then we'll cover some questions in the chat room.
Okay, thanks for the presentation. It got me, I started thinking about a lot of things around our house, but the biggest thing that I have an issue with is that it's hard nowadays to get any kind of trusted professional, even just to do simple things like changing a lock. So is there like a society of trusted professionals that, that if they, don't, if they scam you, their license gets revoked or something like that, real easy? Is there, I know you're in a big, DMV is a big time place, but, out in Cincinnati, you have people that, they just put up their shingle last week or something like that. And
Yeah.
so it's really hard to figure out, who's a trusted professional. Is there some organization where they're trusted in every state, that kind of thing?
Yeah. Sadly, I do not think there's a nationwide kind of source. It's really state by state and even city by city, county by county. Hopefully, at least I can speak for Maryland and Virginia and DC, they do have resources. But even then, it's there's a lot of people doing a lot of work. At construction, it's busy and there's a labor shortage. So finding someone to give you the proper amount of attention is a challenge. And even for those who are working every day in the construction industry, it's a challenge. So I would reach out to other people you may know that have had work done. That's what anybody who's bought a home recently, I always go tell them, ask your neighbor who they've had do work on their house. But sadly, I don't have a great answer. It's a challenge, to be sure. I think somewhere to start might be, and this sounds self-serving. Good, well, it is, but going to a design professional rather than a contractor first, because I do work with a ton of people around the DMV, building that list of people I've worked with and had good experiences with. For a homeowner, you don't work with as many people as we do day to day, just by the nature of what I do for a living. So that might be a good place to go first, is find someone who's on the design side, um, who might be able to recommend someone to help you with whatever you're looking at doing. I hope that was helpful.
Thank you.
Thanks, Harold. And before we go to Irene, there was a question in the chat room, Harry, from Lori. Why do so many put in new steps with only one railing? Is there an architect?
Oh, instead of really, yeah. I mean, there's some that look at a stair from an aesthetic point of view, and they really care about how it looks, and I understand that approach. As someone who's done a lot of work on assisted living facilities, senior communities, affordable housing, I always would, especially for a stair, err on the side of overdoing it. You want to have something to grab onto on either side. You might be holding something in one hand, not the other. And every jurisdiction in the US kind of has their own building codes and own modifications. So they may be allowed to just do one railing. I think it is allowed in residential, single family residential in Maryland and Virginia. But it's something that, even if I'm designing a home or renovation for someone in their 40s with little kids, I still overdo anything around stairs, just because the consequences of not including a handrail, not including a proper handrail that's securely fastened to the wall, can be really bad. So I can't answer your question on why people don't share my concern, but yeah.
Okay, great, Harry. Thanks so much. And we'll go to Irene next. I'm going to kind of flip-flop back and forth from questions from the chat room and people who have their hands raised. Irene, I'm going to send you sort of a link on your screen to unmute. Go ahead. Click there.
Yeah, I did it. Thank you. Thank you, Harry. I have one question. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So one question I have, what do you think of stair lifts?
Stair lifts in the right scenario are great. I know some don't love the way they look, but they get the job done. I think having someone install it that's what they do, and they know kind of what to look for in terms of how you get into it, and how you get out of it, and making sure those transition points are safe and you have enough things to hold on to. But I think when it comes to a kind of a stair lift versus an elevator, the cost is not comparable. And it's not feasible for everybody to turn a space in their first floor into a bedroom and a bathroom. So a stair lift can be that one kind of linchpin thing where it lets you stay in that home. And then it's also one of those things that's removable. So it doesn't have a long-term impact on the investment in your home, because you're making a kind of, sometimes we go down the road of making a big change for a specific need that may then have to be undone in a drastic way. A stair lift is a great kind of more temporary solution.
So I have another question. We live in a home 30 plus years that does not have a bedroom on the first floor, nor full, just half bath. We live in a DMV area. Do you have a contact information for, like, we were contemplating either a move or put in an addition, or and this would require an architect. Do you have a contact information?
I hesitate to kind of share anything past myself in this forum, but I can say if you go towards the American Institute for Architects, I would just search for an architect near you that has done similar work. And I can speak, well, yeah, I'm at Bowers Design Build. A design build company may be a good fit for you. But yeah, I hesitate to get too far into that on Oates's time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Harry, and then Susan earlier in the chat room asked or mentions, I have seen very few thresholds that don't have a small raised strip between
Mm.
different types of flooring, like wood and stone tiles. Is this really possible?
It is doing a zero threshold. So I guess I should zoom out. A threshold like that can be kind of acceptable if it has a little bit of a bevel. Where I see the most danger is when it's a flat floor and then you go up a quarter inch and it's a vertical edge. It's really just you can catch your shoe on that and tumble. But it is doable to kind of, it means pulling up a floor and putting in a new, like putting the floor back down. Where it's carpet, that's actually very affordable. You're pulling the carpet up and putting it back down. Where it gets a little bit more challenging is tile and wood floor. But if you're doing any work and it's new work, definitely just make that crystal clear that you want that to be flush. That's 100% feasible. But there are, I mean, sometimes you just have change. Sometimes it's been a wood floor and they put tile on top. As long as that threshold is sloped, it's okay. Um, I would still, I don't think it's worth tearing it all out, but having a flat floor, even that change in height can be a tripping hazard. So yeah, I would say if you're doing any new work, make that a mandate that has to be a flush condition.
Okay, perfect. And Ty, I want to thank you for your patience for waiting. We'll go to you next. I'm going to send you a link to unmute. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. No worries. My two questions are, number one, do you know if there are companies, I've been looking for a long time for like a hydraulic lift for like 4 steps outside the house where you can just push a wheelchair onto, I don't know, press a button or step on something, it lifts up and you can get that wheelchair into the home. And the second question with that would be, what do you think about the wheelchairs that actually walk up steps? And I'm saying that can walk up like townhome steps.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
thanks. Yeah, I don't have a brand or a provider off the top of my head. It's been a while since I've looked at a hydraulic lift exterior in a more commercial. So for an apartment building, things like that, I have run across providers, but they seem to be much more geared towards. It has a higher price point. It's much more geared to kind of retail and apartment building use. I'm sorry, I don't have anything I can kind of point you towards, but I do know they exist. I just haven't had to dive down that road in a while. And as for the wheelchairs that can go upstairs, I haven't ever actually seen one. So I mean, they look fascinating. And it would definitely be one solution to stairs as a problem, and definitely easier than many other solutions for stairs being the impediment. But yeah, I haven't seen one in person.
Okay, thanks, Ty. Thanks, Harry. Let's go to Bob Shaw next. Bob, go ahead and unmute. You'll see the link on your screen. There you go.
Thanks. I'm a strong advocate for the village. And for those of you who are not familiar with the village, it's not a residence. It's an organization that's for people who have chosen to stay in their homes rather than move into a retirement residence. Our local chapter of the village, for example, will develop lists of vetted people for plumbers, electricians, and handyman, and so on and so forth. And this is particularly valuable, I think, for women who are living in their home alone and therefore concerned about the security and the safety. But if you have a chapter of the village in your area, I would say make contact with it, because it's been a tremendous source of information along that line. I would also suggest that for people who don't have that the local realtors are often a very good source of dependable people. They're often using people to improve the homes they're putting up for sale. So they have mechanics and plumbers and electricians and so on and so forth. And I have found that they are consistently come through with suggestions that are valuable for me. Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah, and I'll echo. Yeah, the realtor is a good thought I hadn't had, and yeah, I wrote down the village. Thank you for that. I'll keep that as a note.
Thank you, Bob. And another question from the chat room. As an architect, what are some of the most frequent requests that you get for making a client's house most aging in place friendly?
I think for the work I'm doing now, which is kind of on the single family in Northern Virginia, we get a surprising amount of requests for elevators. But kind of second, or maybe before that, maybe equal with that, it's taking space on their first floor and making it that first floor suite. They may have a space in their home that they're already thinking about for a use like that, or maybe kind of doing an addition where it's an old sun porch, taking that down and rebuilding it as an additional bedroom on that first floor with a bathroom. So I think that's probably the number one. And then in tandem, when we're doing small projects, regardless of age or kind of circumstance, we're always looking at, can we add a grab bar? One thing we always do in any bathroom is add blocking behind the tile walls. So adding those wood studs in there so you can later fix that grab bar to the wall and have that be really sturdy so that that's in there. Those are like the cost $20 and you do it whenever you're doing work so that you prepare for the future. So those two requests are probably the most common.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that answer, Harry. What is your view on tiny homes?
Tiny homes. In terms of aging in place, I don't know how that fits in, but I'm a big fan. I mean, I'm a taller person myself, so it's always been kind of a love-hate relationship where I like the idea of it, but then I also know that me personally would be a little constrained. I do know that if you have your kind of home, and you have some space around it, a tiny home and doing something that is not connected. I'm going to blank on the actual provider, but I know there are people out there that will either sell you or rent you kind of a tiny home that might be a little bit more accessible. So that is kind of an option where if you have the space on your property to do that, you might not have to spend a fortune on your existing home. You might be able to kind of add that space, or potentially, if it's for a family member, add that space for them that's not in your home. So I think there's a lot to explore there if that works for you spatially.
Okay, and I see a couple of hands raised before we go to you. We're gonna take one more question, or we have a couple of more questions from the chat room. But another one that I overlooked is from Sharon. Any ideas or new products for ceiling lights to make them easier to reach and change light bulbs?
Ceiling lights and changing light bulbs. So I would say if you have a ceiling light with a light bulb that's a little bit hard to reach, an electrician should be able to switch that out for you to something that's an LED, either an LED bulb, or pull the fixture and put a retrofit LED fixture there that should have a similar look. But that will extend the life of a much longer time. So ideally, you never have to change it. I have lights in my house that I think will ideally outlive me. And then in terms of making the actual light bulb easier to change, I would say swap it out for something with a longer lifetime. And then if it's a switching issue, my go-to is always a Lutron Cassetta. They have kind of a whole family of products where you can switch out the actual wall switch and then add a remote that's tied to it. So you can take that remote, it can be on a side table, you can mount it to the wall, but it gives you that extra function without having to poke holes in your drywall and run new wiring.
Okay, and then I wanted to remind you guys, because I'm wondering if this would help too, Harry. Don't forget, folks, right after this session, Zeke is going to be teaching a class called Technology for Aging in Place. And it has a lot to do with, and plus I'm also going to put a link for our senior planning community about, automating your your home. So there are smart light bulbs too that you could probably install and control those light bulbs. And they last, usually, I think from what I remember, they last a lot longer than regular light bulbs. So you can control them remotely through an app and things like that, turning them on and off. So I put the link to Zeke's class coming up in just a few minutes in the chat room. And we're going to go to Anna Maria. Thank you for your patience, Anna Maria. I'm going to send you a link to unmute.
Okay, well, first of all, I'd like to agree with Bob Shaw on the village. I'm a part of my local village, and that is a good place for referrals because you get to know those people and you can trust their reviews. But the other thing I wanted to mention, I haven't vetted this, but it's a nonprofit, Universal Design Services, udservices.org. There's a whole section there that just focuses on aging in place, services focused on better living for older adults. It's definitely worth checking. udservices.org. Of course, they relate to persons with disabilities as well as people that are aging. And I know that we have a road here that has it needs repair. And I submitted to our local people that this negatively impacts people rolling in strollers, older people tripping, everybody. So universal design.
Yeah, and I think I touched on, lots of the things that you may be thinking about in terms of aging in place don't just benefit a senior resident. They'll have benefits all over. So I wouldn't be scared of doing things to your home that you think will benefit you because it will be something that someone else will have to take out. You never really know what other people will need.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you. Thank you so much, Anna Maria and Harry. There's a question also from the chat room. Somebody was mentioning a way to slope the front steps up your front door, right? Like they don't have a need for a ramp, just something to step up 7-inch rise from the ground into the house. Is there something they can buy like at Home Depot? And somebody else in the chat mentioned that they found something on Amazon. Do you have any ideas or any responses to that question?
I can't think of anything other than like a small ramp to get up that kind of 6 or 7-inch step. One thing to think about outside is if you have control, it may be worth getting a landscaper in there to make that kind of a sloped ramp, but I know that has cost to it. There may be products out there that kind of advertise themselves as quick fixes. In my professional experience, I haven't seen that prove true. A ramp is standard and kind of you want to make sure that it's not too steep because it then will really not work. So I would there may be things that there's definitely things I haven't seen. So I would just take a look at it with a little bit of skepticism if it's promising to solve all like that single step problem.
I saw something at someone's house driving through the neighborhoods one day, and it looked like, and I looked it up, and it's like a ramp that kind of folds into something you can carry like a big, huge suitcase, and it folds out, and you could just kind of extend it. I'm not sure what supports it underneath it or how safe that is, but that's something that I came to mind when I was reading that question. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to go to Landis. Proctor, Landis, go ahead and unmute. I'm going to send you a link to unmute.
Hi. I recently, about 7 weeks ago, broke my hip and femur. And so I had to come back home eventually. And I was fortunate that I had already made sure that everything that I needed access to was on the ground floor. And when I had to get a wheelchair and all this other stuff, I made sure it would fit through my doors, especially to the restroom, the kitchen, the bedroom, and all that. It did. But the problem was with the ramp. If you try and get them off of any websites, they're not going to fit you correctly because they're not going to have the correct slope for ADA. I know that because I have custom ramps in my other house, and I could not get them to fit this house. And one of them was only 4 inches. That's not a 2-foot ramp or a 3-foot ramp. It's too steep. You've got to have higher. Luckily, installing grab rails was the first thing I did when I bought this house. But I could get all my grab bars put in, and I could rent some ramps to get me in and out of the house temporarily until I can have them custom made. So I just wanted to say that those you buy off Amazon, they don't work. And I saved $200 by sending it back. So that's all. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, ramps are very challenging. To get an ADA compliant, there's a reason there's an ADA rule on slope for ramps. It's sometimes when you think, hey, it's only 2 feet up, that ramp is long. So don't underestimate, like the slope makes a really, really, really big difference.
Yeah, as Landis is showing us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so from the chat, Ellen Goodman, and one thing I wanted to remind everybody, we have about 12 minutes left. Don't forget about our session after today's session on technology in aging in place with Zeke. But another question, and we're not going to be able to get to all the questions. We apologize. But remember that this session is being recorded and will be available on our YouTube channel in about 2 weeks. Give us 2 weeks. So from Ellen, bathrooms are tricky as we age. Toilets, faucets, showers, tubs, etc. Any pointers for getting started? One person mentioned in the chat adding a saddle to their bathtub. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, there are actually a lot of products that are made to retrofit many different scenarios in a bathroom. You can have a removable tub seat that is it's a transfer type tub where you might be in a wheelchair, or it makes it easier to get into that tub. Some things to think about when you're looking at products like that are, can I reach the shower controls when I'm sitting in the tub on that bench? So bathrooms are one of those where there may be things that can help you along the way, and I would kind of try things until you find that thing that works. But at the core of it, if the bathroom is designed in such a way where you can't reach, you can't turn the water on when you're sitting on the bench you bought in the tub. There's things that, like, if it's really, really tight in there, like a kind of traditional 3-piece bathroom where it's vanity, toilet, tub. There's just some inherent challenges with some of those smaller bathrooms. But for go-to kind of for bathrooms is adding grab bars. You can swap out your toilet for something that has maybe a little bit higher of a seat. Lighting in bathrooms is one of those things that, even though we would think that a bathroom is very well lit because it has the vanity and the mirror to prepare in the morning, sometimes those are not really doing what you really want them to do, to have that visibility in the tub or the shower. So kind of zooming out, taking a holistic look, and then identifying those points and trying to solve those individual problems. But that's another one where a kitchen and bath company, or any designer can kind of take a fresh set of eyes to it and see what are those real problems that you're trying to solve. But even in big apartment buildings, we would do kind of a removable tub seat that kind of clamps onto the edge of the tub and has a foot. And those meet ADA requirements. I would say when you're shopping, look for those tags from a reputable store that are ADA compliant, UFAS compliant, which is a Uniform Federal Accessibility Standards. Either of those should kind of lead you in the right direction.
Great, thanks, Harry. And since we're on the subject of bathrooms, Evelina earlier in the chat room was wondering if you had any thoughts, any suggestions to make a tile in a shower not so slippery. She hears that seniors falling due to slippery tiles a lot, and they have a bathroom with tiles. So, any suggestions on that?
Funnily enough, it's a classic. It's kind of those, the stickers you can get that have that traction. Those are, rather than ripping out the whole floor and putting it back, those do work. Or it's getting a shower mat that has a little bit more traction. And I would also think about, as you step out of the shower, making sure that has the same treatment as inside the shower, because your foot's going to be wet. So as you think about doing that, something to keep in mind. But yeah, that's kind of, if it's going to be a retrofit, if you like your shower the way it is, you can get clear kind of stickers that provide a little bit more traction. And those may be, I don't have a great source for those, so those may be you buy something and test it out and try it. Hopefully it's a low cost item. It's also one of those things that's removable in the future if it doesn't work for you. but no quick fix.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much. And Elva, thank you so much for your patience. Good to see you again. I'm going to send you the link to unmute. Go to you next.
Yes, I lead a group here in Arlington, Texas called Ambassadors for Aging Well. And I also chair the Arlington Mayor's Advisory Council for Older Adults. And one thing that we've been advocating for, we want the city to amend its Unified Development Code to include certain universal design principles. We're not asking for everything. We're just asking for 3 primary things: a no step entrance, wide enough doorways and hallways for a wheelchair to pass, usually 32 to 36 inches wide, and a bathroom on the main floor, to require that in new residential construction. And the mayor says, Elva, that sounds like a no-brainer, and yet nothing has happened yet because builders don't want to be told what to do, even though it doesn't cost the builder nor the home buyer anything extra if it's designed in from the beginning. And it doesn't end up looking like a handicapped house, you know, these accessibility standards. We did get them to put grab bars or backer boards in the bathroom on new residential construction so that grab bars could be added easily without major remodeling later. But it's really a marketing advantage if builders would just, you know, promote it that way, because it makes a house usable and livable for anybody. So anyway, that's basically what I said. But right now, elders are being forced to leave their homes prematurely and move into either assisted living or nursing homes where they could age in place if they had these accommodations. And it saves taxpayers money, because if somebody goes into Medicaid, most people can't pay that for into nursing homes, SNFs, skilled nursing facilities. Most people cannot pay that for very long out of their savings, and it ends up being paid by taxpayers. It just, you know, needs to be happening everywhere to make homes accessible for everyone. So that's all I had.
Yeah, and it's something that there's many things even in the building code that we look at as designers and kind of question whether that's really makes sense. For instance, the zero step kind of entry.
Yeah.
Depending where in the country you live, some building codes require some step there because you have kind of flood issues, you have snow issues, but at the same time, you have to balance those two things. So I would say it would be more important to have a zero threshold and maybe try to address those other things a different way. But things move very slowly when it comes to building codes and building regulations.
And the topography, you know, if the topography does not support a no step entrance, and it could be the front or through the garage or through the side or the back door, you know, but if the topography doesn't support that, then they would get a waiver, you know.
Yeah. It's one of those. I've fought my battles on similar notes for many things over the years, and if you look back 20, 30 years, our building codes were extremely different. So I can say over the long view of history, we are making great improvements to what we require out of builders.
Right.
But at the same time, I have to think about if we make things a little bit too challenging, and this is not applicable to any of the items you mentioned, but some other things. If we make things too challenging, then supply dries up and you have other consequences. So it's a fraught landscape for making some of these decisions.
All right, thanks, Alva. Thanks, Harry. Let's go to Sherry next. Sherry, I'm going to send you that link to unmute on your screen. You'll see it on your screen.
Okay, thank you. I've heard about the village where you can get, hello, I just lost you. Where are you all?
We can hear you. Yeah, we can hear you and see you.
Oh, good, because I can't see you anymore. But here's the thing. How do I find if there's one of those near me? What should I Google? Because I'd sure like to have a place, because they also have people that help you there, I've been told. So how do I find out if there's one near where I live?
I put the link in the chat for that Village to Village Network, and you can go there and search.
Village to Village Network. Okay, if I can get in the chat. I don't know if I can do that anymore because I got to get back to where you are.
Are you on a computer? You could just click on you'll see the little Zoom desktop app on your toolbar, perhaps, or if you're on a
Oh, the Zoom? Okay, let me see. I just did it, but I didn't get you back. I don't know why. Huh.
you should see a little like little thumbnail opening of the Zoom view. No?
Where is it?
Are you
Really?
using it's hard
I'm
to
on a
tell. It's either going to be in your toolbar or your browser window, however you joined.
Okay, and what am I looking for again?
Just the Zoom app or the Zoom desktop app.
Oh, I did. I just clicked on it, but it's not giving me you. Ah, gotcha now. So
Okay.
I should go. I should go
Thanks,
in the
Sherry.
chat and get what? Who put what there?
Elva put some information.
It's an easy link, though. It's just v2vnetwork.org.
And Harold just re-put it.
Like Village to Village Network, but v2vnetwork.org.
Okay, v2vnetwork.org. Thank you so much.
Okay, no problem. All right, folks. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I put some information, a few reminders into the chat room. I see that we maybe have like 1 minute left, and we are sorry that we weren't able to get to all the questions. But remember, we do have a somewhat of a follow-up session after this happening in just a minute. Our Technology for Aging in Place lecture is being held starting here in just a minute. So there's a link for that to join. You can click on the other links to our Senior Planet community group, where you can join that group for home automation ingenuity advice and tips. There are some links. If you're new to Senior Planet, you can create a free account, call our hotline if you need any help with that, and our hotline can be found on the front page of our website. And then remember, this session has been recorded. It will be available on our YouTube channel in a couple of weeks, so the link is in there. You can search for Senior Planet on YouTube, subscribe to our channel, turn on notifications, and we'll let you know when we upload new videos. All right. Well, let's give Harry a round of applause. Harry Webb, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate your time for discussing this important topic.